My chosen one, listen to the sound that tears the heavens at this instant, because even the very spiritual lightning bows before God's decree concerning you, and I see angels on their knees, the sky trembling, as if a window of eternity had been opened only for you. And in this breath of limited time, your soul was summoned to receive the truth that was hidden in the corridors of the unseen. It is not a distant scene, it is not merely a symbolic vision, it is heaven itself bending to bring to you what was kept with zeal and secrecy. You were called by name, chosen among multitudes, and now you hear my voice, not by chance, but because the hour was marked by the throne of the Most High. There is no delay, there is no coincidence. What there is the exact time, the divine kairos, where everything that seemed confusing becomes clear, and what seemed closed opens like doors that yield before the command of God. Your life has been a field of invisible battles, and I saw each one of them. When your eyes filled with silent tears and no one knew, I was there. When loneliness seemed to suffocate your soul and the weight of silence was heavier than you could bear, I was raising walls of protection, even when you thought you were alone. There were nights when your heart cried out for answers, nights when the world slept and you remained awake, trying to understand why love seemed distant, why the promise seemed delayed, why your soul felt the chill of waiting. Listen to me. Nothing you endured was ignored. Every sigh of yours was recorded, every tear was kept, every battle was observed, because your God never withdrew, and his angels never left you without guard. Today I tell you, there is a revelation that breaks through the heavens and pours over you. It is about your soulmate, about that bond the Most High wrote even before you were born, about that link that was sealed in the eternal scrolls. You thought distance was rejection, you believed silence was absence, but the truth that now opens before you is another. There were secrets kept not to wound you, but to protect you. There were pains carried in silence, not because love did not exist, but because it was so strong it sought to shield you from even greater suffering. There were walls raised not to push you away, but to hide scars your soul was not ready to see. Now heaven decides there is no longer any need for walls. Now the Most High commands that the truth be revealed. Now I, Archangel Michael, cut with the flaming sword the chains of deception and bring down the walls that kept you far from what was already yours by right. Hear the sound of the sword that echoes in the unseen realms. Hear the crash of the falling ramparts. Hear the angels rejoicing because the hour has come. What was hidden will no longer be shadow. What was hushed will not remain silence, because the time of revelation is now. My chosen one, understand that your heart was prepared for this moment. The Lord would not allow you to receive this truth in a time of fragility, because it could crush you. He waited, he strengthened you, he taught you to resist, to persevere, to trust, even when there were no signs. You were tested in the fire of waiting, but you were not consumed. You were refined in patience, but you were not broken. You were trained in silence, but you were not abandoned. Everything was construction. Everything was preparation. Everything was love. And today, before you, is the revelation that changes your story. Your soulmate did not forget you, did not despise you, did not withdraw out of coldness. On the contrary, there was love, there was care, there was a desire to protect you from the pains they carried. And that love, though covered by walls, remained alive, throbbing, waiting for the moment when heaven would permit the barriers to fall. Now the Most High breathes upon that wall, and it dissolves. Now the silences turn into true words. Now the distances turn into bridges. Now what seemed lost rises again with more life than before. Feel the weight of eternity upon you in this instant. It is not a simple revelation, it is all of heaven conspiring to align your heart with the heart of the one destined to walk at your side. It is the time of clarity, it is the time of alignment, it is the time when the truth that sets free touches your soul like gentle fire. There is no more deceit, there is no more shadow, there is no more confusion, there is only light, there is only certainty, there is only promise fulfilled. You need to understand that what now opens before you is not only for the present. This revelation does not reach only your life, but also generations that will come from you. What heaven releases now breaks ancient cycles of silence, of fear, of pain. What you receive now is not only for your joy, but for your lineage, for those who will yet be born, for those who will inherit from you a different legacy, a healed path, a restored love. My chosen one, you cannot treat this moment as something common. Do not turn your eyes away. Do not allow your mind to be distracted, because this is a short window, a divine breath that was opened only for you. If you embrace it, if you keep it, if you respond with faith, then miracles will multiply in your life. These are not empty words. This is not a mere promise. It is a decree from the throne. Listen well, your perseverance was not in vain. Your prayers were not ignored. Your waiting was not foolish. You were being prepared to endure and now to celebrate. The time in which you wept asking if God still heard you was the same time in which He was shaping your capacity to carry this revelation without breaking. You were being trained to receive, and now you receive. I, Michael, tell you, your life will never be the same. Your lonely nights will not return. Your weary heart will not live in the same way. Because the truth that opens before you today brings rest, brings peace, brings restoration. What once confused you will now become testimony. What once wounded you will now become strength. What once isolated you will now become a bridge. Lift up your eyes and behold what God is doing. Angels move around you. All of heaven celebrates your victory. And I assure you, it was not late. It was not forgotten, it was not lost. It was only reserved for the moment when you would be ready. And that moment is now. You thought your lonely nights had been forgotten, but every silent tear fell like a pearl into the hands of the Most High. And I, Michael, stood before you when the pain closed around your chest. And I know of the battles you never told, of the attacks that surrounded you without human eyes perceiving them, because I myself raised invisible walls so that your life would not be taken. The world did not know, those around you did not see, but all of heaven followed your faltering steps. In every dawn when your soul cried without voice, the Lord recorded your groan as prayer. In every moment when you believed yourself invisible, your existence shone before the throne. Nothing was lost, nothing was ignored, nothing went unnoticed. He walked with you in the valleys when no one was willing to enter. When your mind became a field of shadows, it was the light of God that kept your sanity firm. When your strength was fading, an invisible hand upheld your feet. Every secret battle was fought with heavenly armies around you, even if you did not know it. There were days when darkness plotted your fall, but a divine decree was already in force, preventing you from being defeated. It was not chance that you resisted, it was not luck that you survived. It was intentional care from heaven. Here is the reality that many will never understand. Your life has always been surrounded by war. It was not only about ordinary circumstances, but about clashes that tried to silence your calling. Your soul was marked from the beginning, chosen to carry light in the midst of darkness, and for that reason, you were the target of so many uprisings. Still, no weapon prospered because the hand of the Most High sealed you. I, Archangel Michael, fought in invisible fields where your name was the target of accusation, and it was the justice of the Lord that annulled every sentence. Look back and realize, in moments when you thought death would be your end, you were rescued by something greater. In those moments when your mind was tempted to give up, there was a divine breath that rekindled your flame. When you believed that the emptiness would consume you, you were visited by a peace you could not explain. And it was not imagination, it was intervention. It was not coincidence, it was plan. It was not just passing comfort, it was the presence of God who decided not to move away from you, even if your pain was too deep to put into words. You believed that you were alone, but you were accompanied closely. The Most High not only observed, He moved pieces around you. How many times did you think that a meeting or a word were just chance? How many times did you believe that a small hope sprouted without reason? None of that was small. None of that was accidental. They were signs, drops of care, reminders that you were being guided. At every step of yours, even when wavering, there was an invisible direction. Your struggle was not a sign of weakness, but of value. You were so disputed because you carry within you a promise that cannot be erased. Darkness rose because they feared what you would still live. The attacks were many because the inheritance resting on your life is too great to be ignored. The Lord did not allow you to be defeated because there are seeds in you that must bloom. You are more precious than you think, and you were kept not only out of compassion, but because your story has eternal weight. Do not let the memory of pain erase the recognition of protection. You saw wounds, but you were not destroyed. You knew loneliness, but you were not abandoned. You crossed desert, but you did not die of thirst. You cried, but you did not become dry. Every mark you carry is a sign of survival, and every scar speaks of victory. Do not despise the path you walked, because it is proof that the Most High never lost control. Now understand, what you were forced to endure was not a waste of time. The long waits were training. The dark nights were ground of preparation. The tears were seeds watered by heaven itself. Nothing was in vain. You were shaped in silence so that today your soul would be mature to understand what is being revealed. What seemed delay was care, what seemed absence was protection, what seemed injustice was alignment. And so what you thought would be your end was only the beginning. What you judged as curse was in fact covering. The doors that closed were not to humiliate you, but to preserve you. The interrupted paths were not to frustrate, but to redirect. The love of God was always hidden in the details, and today He allows you to see that nothing was wasted. All of heaven moved to keep you standing. What you endured was not forgotten, but recorded as testimony. What you conquered in silence will now be proclaimed in victory. The angels who kept you rejoice because you crossed and remained. And I tell you with the voice of eternity, you were not only kept, you were prepared for something you will not be able to contain. The life ahead of you is not a shadow of past pain, but harvest of perseverance. The time of darkness will not return with the same force because you were forged to recognize the light. Pain will no longer have dominion over you because you have already learned to discern the presence of the Most High in the midst of tears. What rose against you no longer has the same power because you were marked by the victory of the Lord. Receive this truth. You are a living witness that God does not abandon His own. You are proof that invisible battles do not surpass divine authority. You are a sign that hope does not die even when everything seems lost. And you are called to live not only survival, but fullness. I, Michael, assure you that your story is not one of defeat. Every shadow faced was overcome by light, every lie dissolved by truth, every clash transformed into victory. And everything that surrounded you in silence will now be used as an announcement that your life belongs to the one who never fails. Today I declare to you with firmness, God, the Lord of all eternity, is the judge who overturns sentences. He is the general who commands armies of fire. He is the Father who sustains when strength runs out. And before his word, no shadow remains. No decree of darkness stands, because his order is life and victory. He raises his voice and the universe falls silent. He moves his hand and entire kingdoms bow down. He decides and all creation bends. There is no human council that can undo what he establishes. There is no principality that can resist his will. What he writes remains. What he determines is fulfilled. What he decrees is unchangeable. And what he now declares over your life is deliverance. It is restoration. It is the fulfillment of promises that seemed distant. The Most High is not an unjust judge, nor a general who abandons wounded soldiers, nor a father who forgets weary children. He is the perfect balance between authority and tenderness, between fire that consumes evil and arms that embrace the broken. When he rises, chains are broken. When he commands, enemies fall. When he touches, the wounded are healed. His dominion is not partial, it is total. His word is not fragile, it is a sword that cuts what seemed unbreakable. And this dominion manifests over your story now, bringing an end to what imprisoned you, and a beginning to a time in which you will be a witness of his faithfulness. You believed there were definitive sentences against you, that decisions made in darkness would determine your future, but behold, the Lord overturns decrees. What was condemnation becomes deliverance. What was failure becomes renewal. What was defeat is transformed into victory. Nothing is sealed without his permission. Nothing is closed without his decision. Nothing is permanent beyond what he himself has written. And over you he wrote life, over you he decreed hope, over you he established destiny. There is no human tribunal that can revoke it. There is no spiritual accusation that can prevail. There is no force that can resist what has been pronounced from the eternal throne. Look around and perceive that you do not walk by chance, for entire heavens move in your direction. You are not abandoned to the chance of circumstances. You are guarded by an army that obeys the command of an invincible general. When darkness devised plans against your life, counter-orders were issued by the Most High. When hidden forces desired your fall, angels were sent to sustain your feet. When your name was cast in accusations, the blood of the Lamb rose as an uncontested defense. This is how the God who governs moves, the God who never loses, the God who chose you. Archangel Michael was sent to bear witness before you of the invisible reality. Battles were fought in heavens your eyes cannot see, but that decided the course of your story. There were struggles in which your soul did not even realize it was involved, and yet the result was your preservation. Not because you were strong enough, but because God determined that you would not be overcome. This is the mark of his love, love that does not depend on your merit, but on his sovereign decision. And now, in the midst of this revelation, understand that your future is not in human hands. It is not bound to past failures. It is not subjected to earthly limitations. It is sealed in the heart of a Father who does not fail. It is guarded under the command of a general who is never defeated. It is established in the decree of a judge whose word is irrevocable. He has already gone ahead of what worries you. He has already positioned himself before what threatens you. He has already declared victory over what still seems uncertain. Do not fear any more the voices that tried to condemn you. Do not fear any more the winds that blew against your house. Do not fear any more the memories that tried to bind you. All these things have been subjected to the word that now echoes over you. You are free, you are guarded, you are victorious. Not by your strength, but by the strength of the one who rises in your favor. He does not call you to merely survive, but to triumph. He does not raise you up only to resist, but to advance. He does not sustain you only to endure, but to flourish. The power that surrounds you is not fragile, it is absolute. The hand that holds you is not unstable, it is eternal. The care that envelops you is not temporary, it is constant. And just as the sun rises without anything being able to prevent it, so the word of the Most High is fulfilled over you. You cannot stop it, no one can delay it, nothing can invalidate it. The promise is more solid than mountains, firmer than oceans, more stable than stars. And you are called to believe not in what you see, but in what has been decreed. Lift up your head and behold what has already begun. The walls that surrounded you already show cracks, the chains that bound you have already broken, the shackles that held you have already shattered. It is not tomorrow, it is now. It is not a distant future, it is a present in motion. The order has been released, the decree has been pronounced, heaven has already moved. You walk toward a new time, not because you dreamed it, but because God determined it. And so you are a living witness that the authority of the Most High prevails over all things. You are a sign that His word never returns empty. You are proof that faithfulness does not fail, and the world around you will see that what seemed impossible became reality, not because you were capable, but because the Lord decided to show His power in your life. I, Michael, affirm before you, remain firm, because the decree of victory has already been written. Do not look back with fear, do not look around with doubt, do not look ahead with insecurity. Look only upward and trust, because from there comes your strength, from there comes your help, from there comes your victory. The God who commands the universe is the same who bends down to sustain you, and nothing will be able to resist what He has already begun. Look and behold, you no longer walk alone, for walls of fire surround you, rivers of light flow around you, flaming swords guard your steps, and even archangels were marked in battle to preserve your destiny. And if we endured wounds, it was only because the weight of the calling upon your life is too precious to be lost. Every step of yours has been protected by forces that human eyes do not see, but that never ceased to act. While you believed you were fragile and unprotected, the heavens raised fortresses around you, turning every attack against you into an opportunity for the power of the Most High to be revealed. Nothing surrounded you without there also being an invisible barrier, and nothing struck you without there first being a measure of divine protection. Understand that the battles were not only for you to resist, but for it to be revealed how much you are guarded. When the winds of darkness blew strongly, walls of light were raised to prevent the damage from consuming you. When despair tried to settle in your soul, rivers of peace were poured out to restore your balance. When traps were prepared against your feet, flaming swords undid them before you perceived them. The protection of the Most High was not partial but total, even when you believed you were alone. Every angelic intervention is proof that your worth surpasses human understanding. You are not just one among many, you are someone sealed by an eternal purpose. It was for this worth that battles were fought in invisible heavens, and it was for this calling that even the strongest angels endured wounds. Do not think that this happened by chance, because what rests upon you is so precious that it mobilized legions. You were not guarded only out of compassion, but because your life carries destiny that cannot be interrupted. And even in the times when the enemy believed he had won, the Lord had already determined another end. It was He who turned losses into seeds, who transformed falls into learning, who made silence a fertile ground for revelation. If you are standing today, it is because the heavens moved on your behalf. If your soul still holds hope, it is because the Most High commanded that no darkness be definitive. If your story continues in motion, it is because walls of fire still surround you, preventing what was decreed against you from being fulfilled. There are moments when you think your struggle is too small to draw the throne's attention, but I tell you, every detail of your life has been accompanied with zeal. No battle was ignored, no pain was minimized, no cry was silenced. The care that surrounds you is greater than your understanding, and the presence that sustains you is more real than anything your eyes have ever seen. You are constantly guarded, constantly remembered, constantly strengthened, even when you believe nothing is happening. Look around with spiritual eyes and perceive rivers of light flow in your direction, enveloping your mind, washing your heart, renewing your faith. These rivers are not mere metaphors, they are manifestations of the love of God, who surrounds you on all sides. Flaming swords shine ahead of your steps, opening a path where there seemed to be no way, undoing prisons that held you back, driving away presences that sought to bring you down. With every new dawn, battles are won without you even being aware of them, because heaven never sleeps on your behalf. Even the archangels, when involved in battles for your sake, felt the weight of the struggle. But this was not a sign of defeat, it was a sign of how important you are to the eternal plan. If even heavenly beings endured wounds to preserve your destiny, how much more should you believe that your life is not ordinary? You are called, you are marked, you are protected. And this protection is not temporary, but constant. It is not tied to your merits, but to the irrevocable decision of the Most High to guard you. The Archangel Michael rose with an unsheathed sword in moments when your name was under threat. And in each of those occasions, the victory was not yours by human effort, but by the divine authority that rests upon you. This means you were never forsaken and never will be. It means that darkness may rise but will always fall before the word of the Lord. It means that even if the world tries to extinguish your hope, heaven will continue to breathe life in your direction. Do not underestimate how much you are guarded. The care of God is not only external, it is internal. He not only drove away dangers, but also healed deep wounds in your soul. He not only closed doors of destruction, but also opened paths of hope. He not only delivered you from traps, but also taught you to walk firmly. His care is integral, reaching all areas of your life, and it will continue to manifest until every promise is fulfilled. Therefore, walk in confidence. Do not look at what seems to be opposition greater than your strength. Do not stop before walls that seem too high. Do not retreat before shadows that try to frighten you. You are guarded by walls of fire. You are surrounded by rivers of light. You are accompanied by flaming swords. The presence of the Most High is your covering, and nothing will be able to take you from this protection. And when fear tries to remind you of your weaknesses, remember the victories that have already been won in silence. When doubt tries to settle in your mind, remember the doors that opened against all odds. When weariness tries to paralyze you, remember that even archangels endured wounds so that you would be preserved. This is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of how much you are loved and protected. Move forward with courage because you do not walk alone. Heaven walks with you. The armies of God accompany you. The hand of the Most High sustains you, and every step of yours is surrounded by a presence that cannot be defeated. You are loved, you are guarded, you are chosen, and no battle that rises will be able to change this truth. I see doors that had been shut opening before you like wood yielding to the divine breath. I feel health being restored like a gentle fire descending upon your flesh and your bones. I perceive peace resting upon your mind like a river silencing storms. And I declare that abundance is already flowing in your direction like an unstoppable current. It is not illusion. It is not an empty promise. It is a spiritual reality beginning to take form in the visible. What seemed locked by unbreakable seals no longer resists. What seemed dead is already showing signs of life. What seemed unreachable is already drawing near. Because when the Most High determines, nothing can stop it. When He breathes, structures will yield. When He commands, even dry ground is transformed into a garden. Behold, the decrees of heaven manifest upon you. What was once a scene of defeat now becomes a stage of testimony. The sicknesses that tried to consume your body will no longer have dominion, because the hand of God touches your bones and renews your strength. The mind that was surrounded by anxiety and fear finds rest in the river of peace that descends from the throne. The house that seemed empty begins to be filled with unexpected provision. Every area that once cried scarcity will now witness abundance. And it is not passing abundance, but a continuous current, like waters that never cease, like a spring that never runs dry. Heaven does not speak of possibilities, but of certainties. The Lord does not invite you to imagine, He calls you to believe. Because everything being released already exists in eternity, and now crosses the invisible to touch your present time. You were prepared to receive, your faith was trained to endure, your heart was molded not to waste. What comes is not the result of chance, but the response to a perfect plan. Just as the sun rises without anyone being able to stop it, so too the promises of God rise upon your life. They are fulfilled because He Himself watches over the word He pronounced. No wall will be able to stand before His breath. No lock will resist the touch of His finger. Victory is already in motion, and the signs can already be perceived. Small openings announce great gates, small signs announce greater miracles, small changes announce complete transformations. And while doors open, I also see chains falling. Shackles that limited your steps are now undone. Voices that accused you have already been silenced. Shadows that surrounded you have already dissipated. The Lord is opening a wide path before you, a path that not only frees but leads to a solid inheritance. It is not liberation into emptiness, it is liberation into fullness. It is not healing only for the body, it is healing also for the heart. It is not peace only for brief moments, it is peace that will remain as a guard over your mind. The Archangel Michael contemplates this scene with you and declares that your victory is testimony of who God is. It is not a conquest based on your strength, but on His faithfulness. It is not the result of human strategies, but of heavenly intervention. And therefore no one will be able to steal His glory. The world will look and see that it was the Lord who did it, and your life will be a living letter proclaiming that the hand of the Most High is powerful to transform. Do not be startled by the speed of the changes. What once took years to form can be reversed in moments by the divine order. What seemed to take too long can happen in a moment, because God's time does not follow human calculations. He accelerates processes, He transforms scenarios, He reverses stories, and when He decides to act, everything around must align. Even what opposes becomes an instrument. Even what resists becomes testimony. Even what seemed like delay is revealed as preparation. Now is the time when your life begins to visibly bloom. The seeds that were sown in tears begin to sprout in joy. The fields that were once dry are now watered by abundant rain. The heart that once felt abandoned now perceives it was never alone. You will see fruit where before there was only dust. You will reap where you once believed nothing would grow. You will sing where once you only wept. The abundance that descends is not only material, but spiritual. The Lord enriches your soul with understanding, strengthens your spirit with courage, clothes your heart with hope. He multiplies your strength, renews your joy, restores your confidence. You will not only see doors open, but you will also be strengthened to cross them. You will not only receive blessings, but you will also learn to keep them. You will not only experience miracles, but you will also become a living testimony that the impossible is real when God is present. Remember that the peace resting upon you does not depend on circumstances. Even if winds blow, your mind will remain steady. Even if challenges arise, your heart will remain firm. Even if noises around try to confuse you, your soul will remain anchored in the river of peace that comes from the throne. This is an eternal gift, not a passing one, and it will be the mark that will identify your steps from now on. And when you look back, you will understand that every moment of pain was preparation for this season of abundance. Every tear watered seeds that now bloom. Every silence strengthened your roots so you could withstand the time of waiting. Nothing was wasted, nothing was forgotten, nothing was in vain. Everything worked together so that today you could sustain the harvest that comes. I, Michael, affirm before you, what is before you is not a distant promise, it is a present reality. You can already feel it, you can already perceive it, you can already taste it. Victory is not only a vision, it is fulfillment. Restoration is not only a word, it is manifestation. Abundance is not only hope, it is a current that already surrounds you. And therefore walk with confidence because your God has already risen in your favor. But there is a calling that now echoes in your spirit. Open your heart, respond with your yes, for obedience is the key that heals invisible wounds. It is balm that restores weary angels. It is a river that releases restrained miracles. And your simple movement at this moment becomes a bridge between heaven and earth. This is the time when your response has eternal value, when your seemingly small gesture resounds like thunder in the spiritual realm. You do not perceive the reach of a decision made in faith, but every yes opens portals, every surrender moves legions, every step of obedience touches the heart of the Most High and frees chains that have been bound for generations. Obedience is not weight, it is path. It is not prison, it is freedom. It is not meaningless renunciation, it is the exchange of weakness for strength, of uncertainty for direction, of emptiness for fullness. The Lord does not call you to obey to limit you, but to align you with the flow of miracles that are already prepared. You were created to live in harmony with the voice of the Eternal, and when you respond, your life ceases to walk in circles and begins to advance in a straight line toward purpose. Heaven awaits your response, not because the power of God depends on it, but because the victory that has already been decreed needs your agreement to manifest in fullness. It is like a door that has already been unlocked but needs to be pushed open. It is like a fountain that has already been released but needs to be uncovered to flow. It is like an inheritance that is already registered in your name but needs to be received with outstretched hands. And your yes is the movement that activates this invisible reality into the visible. Archangel Michael contemplates your journey and declares that your response restores not only your life, but also strengthens the heavenly armies that fought on your behalf. Because when you obey, you are not only benefited, but you also become a participant in God's eternal plan. You are a co-worker with heaven. You are an instrument in the hands of the Most High. You are a channel through which rivers of glory descend to the earth. And do not think that your obedience is only personal, for it echoes in generations, reaches families, touches destinies. The calling is simple, yet profound. Open yourself to what the Lord is saying now. He does not ask you for impossible sacrifices. He only asks for sincere surrender. He does not demand perfection. He demands a willing heart. He does not seek grand works. He seeks true yes. And when that yes is spoken, even in silence, even only within you, all of heaven records it as a decree. It is this yes that heals wounds no one sees, that strengthens areas you did not even know were fragile, that releases miracles that were waiting for your agreement. Many resist the call because they think that to obey is to lose. But the truth is that to obey is to gain everything you could never achieve alone. It is to give the little you have and receive the much that comes from God. It is to surrender your limited will and receive the perfection of His will. It is to give up your fragmented plans and be placed into an eternal plan. There is no real loss when you obey. There is only freedom. There is no impoverishment. There is enrichment. There is no decrease. There is multiplication. You have already seen what disobedience produces: delays, pains, interrupted paths. Now you will see what obedience generates: restoration, abundance, fullness. Because when you obey, the walls fall, the rivers flow, the heavens open. When you obey, the impossible becomes real, the improbable becomes testimony, the invisible becomes tangible. When you obey, heaven and earth meet in your story. Do not allow doubt to silence your response. The enemy knows the value of your yes, which is why he tries to distract you, confuse you, delay you. But give no space to hesitation, for every second is an opportunity for alignment. You are not standing before something common, but before an eternal calling. And your obedience at this moment has the power to change the course of your story. Remember that the Lord does not ask you for something without first preparing the way. He does not call you without first strengthening you. He does not demand without first pouring out grace. Everything you need to respond is already in you because He Himself has equipped you. It is not your strength that sustains your obedience. It is His Spirit in you. And therefore do not fear being weak, for even your weakness is clothed by His strength when you say yes. See how heaven rejoices before your response. There is celebration among the angels when a heart yields. There is joy before the throne when a child surrenders. And this joy is not only in the invisible, but also translates into miracles that begin to sprout in the visible. What was closed begins to open. What was bound begins to be loosed. What was dead begins to live. Your obedience is a key that turns and opens doors that no one else could. And when you say yes, your life ceases to be merely a field of battles and becomes a field of harvest. You cease to be only someone who resists and become someone who bears fruit. You cease to be only a survivor and become a conqueror. Because to obey is not only to endure, it is to flourish. It is not only to resist, it is to advance. It is not only to wait, it is to receive. I, Michael, declare before you, your response will be remembered in heaven as a turning point, not as wait, but as victory, not as loss, but as conquest, not as empty sacrifice, but as sowing that will produce eternal fruit. And therefore do not hesitate. The time is now. The opportunity is unique. The calling is before you. Respond, and you will see the heavens opened over your life. My chosen one, do not despise the pain you carried, for every tear was a seed hidden in the soil of the eternal. Every silence was fertile ground where the Most High wrote secret lines of your story, and even that which seemed to you as destruction was not ruin, but sacred ground where God planted something that can never be uprooted. What your eyes saw as loss, the Lord saw as preparation. What seemed like an arid desert was, in truth, a hidden garden, waiting for the right time to bloom. Nothing you endured was in vain, for everything was transformed into raw material for a future that only now begins to reveal itself before you. The tears that wet your pillow did not disappear into forgetfulness. They fell like drops that watered invisible seeds. Every nightly cry, every sigh that seemed useless, every moment when you believed your suffering was sterile was, in reality, a sacred act that heaven gathered with care. The Most High does not despise pain, He transforms it. And thus, what seemed only a sign of weakness became a record of resistance. With each tear, your root deepened, your faith was strengthened, your hope was refined. The silences that wounded you were not in vain either. Many times you believed that silence was a sign of abandonment, but it was, in truth, space for your soul to be trained to listen to the gentle voice of the Spirit. It was in silence that you learned to distinguish between human voices and the voice of God. It was in silence that your trust took root, not in visible signs, but in the unchanging character of the Most High. While you awaited quick answers, He was writing eternal words in the secret soil of your life. The apparent destructions you faced were not your end. They were necessary demolitions so that firm foundations could be built. What seemed like ruin was only the preparation of a new foundation. What was broken was not absolute loss, but opportunity for the Lord to rebuild in you something indestructible. The destruction you lamented was, in truth, transformation. The dust of the things that fell became clay in the hands of the potter, and He molded again, this time with even more perfection. Archangel Michael contemplates your story and declares that every tear of yours was seen, every silence of yours was noticed, every pain of yours was recorded before the throne. There was no forgotten moment, no wasted suffering, no night in vain. You were accompanied closely even if you did not perceive it. And this whole process served not only to strengthen you, but to prepare your life as a living testimony of the faithfulness of God. Now is the time to understand that your pain was not a sign of abandonment, but of value. The Lord allowed you to be refined because there was a greater promise awaiting your maturity. He wastes nothing, not even what your eyes interpreted as failure. Every tear was a record that your faith endured. Every silence was proof that your trust remained. Every loss was transformed into a solid base for a stronger future. You were not defeated, you were prepared. You were not forgotten, you were hidden. You were not destroyed, you were rebuilt. And now before you the harvest of tears begins to sprout, the fruits of silences begin to emerge, the flowers of transformed pain begin to bloom. What seemed only suffering is becoming testimony. What seemed only emptiness is becoming fullness. What seemed only an end is becoming a new beginning. Do not despise the marks you carry. They are not a sign of failure, but medals of resistance. They are signs that you crossed dark valleys and remained standing. They are reminders that you endured what many would not endure. They are evidence that the grace of the Lord was always with you, even when you believed you could not bear any more. These marks do not diminish you, they elevate you before purpose. Look at your pain with new eyes. Do not see it anymore as an enemy, but as part of the process that brought you here. It was pain that made you seek the Most High with more intensity. It was pain that brought you closer to the heart of God. It was pain that taught you to pray with depth, to cry out with sincerity, to wait with patience. It was pain that formed you to receive what now comes. Without it, you would not be prepared. With it, you were forged to endure and also to overflow. The tears you shed will turn into testimony of joy. The silences you endured will turn into songs of victory. The losses you lamented will turn into abundant harvests. For the Lord is a specialist in turning ashes into beauty, in bringing forth life where there was only desert, in restoring hearts that believed they were broken forever. I, Michael, affirm before you, nothing you lived was in vain. Every detail was used by heaven to build in you someone capable of carrying greater promises. Every pain was used to deepen your roots. Every silence was used to refine your faith. Every loss was used to align your path with purpose. And now, as you look back, you will see that even the most difficult moments were part of a story that God Himself wrote with love. Therefore, do not despise anything you faced. Honor your journey because it is testimony of resistance. Embrace your scars because they are a sign of victory. And lift your eyes with confidence because the Most High transforms even pain into harvest. What seemed like the end is, in truth, the beginning of a new season. And you are living proof that nothing is wasted when it is placed in the hands of God. Understand? Nothing you lived was by chance. Everything was woven by the sovereign hand of the Lord, who bends circumstances like a potter molds the clay. And today, He invites you to look beyond the visible, to see the invisible, because there is already movement in the heavens in your favor, and the appointed time has come like dawn that cannot be contained. You were guarded in the midst of crooked roads, but each curve had purpose. Each detour hid protection, each delay carried within it a meaning. What seemed like loss was realignment. What seemed like delay was training. What seemed like silence was construction. The hand of God was never absent. It was always shaping your story so that everything would cooperate with the promise that rests upon you. The Most High does not act randomly. He conducts each detail with precision. You may not have understood at the moment you were wounded, but the wound opened space for a care you would never have experienced without it. You may have lamented what closed, but that closure opened the way for another door, greater and firmer, to present itself at the exact time. And this is what now is revealed. Nothing you lived escaped the divine gaze. Every step, every tear, every conquest, and every loss was stitched into the fabric of your life by hands that know exactly where to take you. Therefore, lift your eyes from the immediate and fix them on the eternal. Do not judge your story by appearances, because the invisible already announces what your eyes do not yet see. There are rivers running in your favor, even if the land around seems dry. There are armies positioned, even if the field seems empty. There are decrees of victory pronounced, even if the environment still shows you opposition. What moves in the heavens always precedes what manifests on earth. Archangel Michael contemplates your days and declares that you are not the result of chance, but intentional work of the Creator. There were invisible walls in which your name was defended, and in each of them the final decision was always the same: life. You are not here by your own strength, but because there were heavenly hands that lifted you when you fell. There were divine breaths that rekindled your flame when it almost went out. There was invisible covering that prevented you from being defeated. Your journey is proof that providence is real, that the hand of the Lord moves even when you do not perceive it. The time of dawn has already begun. What was long night is being overcome by the light that cannot be contained. The shadows that surrounded you dissipate because the clarity of the presence of God rises over you. What was a cycle of pain now becomes a cycle of restoration. What was repetition of losses now becomes repetition of victories. What was silence of uncertainty now becomes silence of peace. This is the time when everything that seemed disordered finds its place, when all the pieces align, when the whole picture gains meaning, and even the things you do not yet understand are part of the plan. The Most High does not waste anything. Even what seems to have been caused by mistakes will be used to manifest grace. Even what seemed the work of the enemy will be reversed as a sign of victory. Even what shamed you will be transformed into testimony of strength. Everything is molded by the potter who does not abandon the vessel in the process. He continues turning the wheel, continues shaping your life, continues adding details that will make your story stronger. Do not fear what you do not yet understand. Trust in the author who has already written the end. Do not fear the paths that seem uncertain. Trust in the shepherd who has already led you through valleys before. Do not fear the voices that try to discourage you. Trust in the judge who has already decreed your future. The appointed time does not depend on human calendars. It depends on the divine clock, and that clock has already announced the dawn in your life. You are now called to live with eyes that see beyond. Faith does not ask you to deny reality, but to look beyond it. It does not ask you to ignore pain, but to understand that pain is part of transformation. It does not ask you to deny challenges, but to understand that they are the stage where the power of God is manifested. Faith is the lens that reveals the invisible and shows that the impossible is already in motion. And when you look back, you will see that every detail was interconnected. What seemed loose was part of a perfect plot. What seemed meaningless was a line that completed the greater design. What seemed like loss was only a layer preparing the ground for a more lasting gain. And your life will be testimony that providence never fails, that the Most High never loses control, that every season, no matter how hard it was used for good. I, Michael, declare before you, the time of chance is over, the time of revelation has come. You will no longer walk thinking that everything is empty and without direction. Now you will walk with the certainty that each step is guided, each day is cared for, each detail is woven by eternal hands. And when the dawn rises in full, your mouth will be filled with songs, your heart will overflow with peace, and your story will proclaim that the Lord is faithful at all times. I now see the whole heaven rising. I see legions of angels standing up. My sword shines like fire on the horizon. Seeds once hidden are now blooming. Promises kept are being fulfilled. And the sound that echoes is the same that declares, your God is faithful. And He never allowed you to be alone. This is the moment when victory becomes visible, when what was only germinating in the invisible breaks the ground and appears before your eyes. The heavens celebrate because the decree is already established. The angels raise their voices because fulfillment is already reality. And your life now becomes testimony of the power that cannot be defeated. The seeds that fell in silence during the time of pain now rise as flowers in open fields. What seemed buried was only preparation to bear fruit. What you thought lost was only kept to bloom at the right time. And this is the time. The season of waiting has ended. The season of promise has begun. You will see before you what you once could only imagine. You will touch what you once could only hope for. You will reap what was once hidden beneath the soil. And as the harvest begins to sprout, legions of angels stand around you in a position of honor, not only to protect you, but to celebrate with you. Because your victory is not only personal, it is also heaven's triumph over the darkness that fought so much against you. Each battle won, each tear transformed, each silence used as a seed now resounds in a song of victory. The heavens rise not out of formality, but out of rejoicing. The faithfulness of the Most High has been fulfilled before all, and your life becomes a living altar that exhales gratitude. Archangel Michael contemplates this scene with sword raised, shining like fire on the horizon, and declares that no force was able to interrupt what the Lord determined. All attempts to steal your inheritance became useless. All plans to extinguish your hope dissolved like ashes in the wind. All chains that sought to bind you were broken. The glow of the sword is not threat, it is sign that justice has been fulfilled, that victory has been sealed, that heaven has won on your behalf. The promises kept were not forgotten, they were only matured. Like wine that needs time to become more precious, so too were your promises kept until they were ready to be poured over you. And now they are fulfilled in abundance, not as drops but as rivers overflowing. They descend with strength and gentleness, bringing peace, joy, and restoration with them. It is not partial fulfillment, it is fullness. It is not only remembrance, it is realization. It is not only word, it is manifestation. This is the time when your life becomes a song. No longer only silent prayer, but audible hymn. No longer only lament, but praise. No longer only waiting, but celebration. Because the faithfulness of God did not fail, did not delay, did not disappear. What he said remains. What he promised happens. What he planned manifests. And you are the living proof of this power. You are the visible witness of this faithfulness. You are the altar upon which his glory rests. The legions that stand before you do not rise out of pity, but out of recognition. Recognition that your perseverance was honored, that your faith was answered, that your waiting was rewarded. They rise as those who watch a spectacle prepared by the Most High himself. And you are the protagonist of this story, written by the throne. You are not a mere spectator, you are witness and also heir. And the sound that echoes is unique, absolute, eternal. Your God is faithful. This phrase crosses dimensions, runs through generations, echoes in heavens and earth. It is proclamation that never ceases. It is truth that does not change. It is foundation that does not shake. And upon you, this truth is fulfilled in such a visible way that no one will be able to deny it. Even those who doubted will see. Even those who mocked will acknowledge. Even those who turned away will return to witness that the Lord was with you all the time. Archangel Michael declares again that you were never alone. Not in the darkest night, not in the deepest valley, not in the fiercest storm. There was always company, there was always guard, there was always presence. What you thought was abandonment was in reality silent protection. What you thought was emptiness was space for greater glory. And now when you see fulfillment, you will realize that there was never a single instant when you were forgotten. And so your life enters a new season. No longer only to survive, but to flourish. No longer only to resist, but to multiply. No longer only to wait, but to live. This is the time of abundant harvest. This is the time of full restoration. This is the time of public testimony. The faithfulness of God becomes a banner raised over your life, and all will see that he is Lord, that he is faithful, that he is just. I, Michael, declare that victory is already yours, and that the song beginning to rise in your mouth will never again be silenced. Heaven rose up for you, the earth will see your restoration, and your story will forever proclaim, your God is faithful and never allowed you to be alone. My beloved, what was once hidden is now revealed. Your soulmate did not walk away out of lack of love, but because of carrying pains that they did not want to touch you. And today heaven tears down the walls. Today silences are transformed into bridges. Today the truth reaches you like a flash that sets free, because God decided that your time to live the impossible has finally come. What seemed like absence was in fact a mantle of protection. What sounded like distance was love disguised in silence. What you interpreted as coldness was care hidden in invisible gestures. And now, like dawn that can no longer be contained, everything becomes clear. There was love, there was promise, there was destiny. The Most High would never allow you to remain trapped in deceptions. He waited for the moment when your heart was mature enough to understand, the time when your soul was strong enough to sustain the revelation. Because it is not only about knowing, it is about carrying without breaking. And today you are ready. The keys that were kept are placed in your hands, the curtains that hid are opened before your eyes. The mysteries that seemed unreachable become part of your journey. This is the time of reconciliation, of understanding, of rebuilding. The walls that separated were torn down by the breath of the Spirit. There is no longer any barrier between your soul and the soul that was destined for you. What was once a burden now becomes lightness. What was once doubt now becomes clarity. What was once distance now becomes closeness. You no longer need to try to decipher confusing signs because the truth manifests in light. You no longer need to search in shadows for what is already before you in clarity. Now you walk toward a redeemed relationship, aligned, restored by God Himself. Archangel Michael contemplates this move and declares that the love that seemed dormant never ceased to exist. It was only hidden under layers of fear and pain. And even in silence that love cried out for you. Now heaven removes the layers, exposes the root, restores the essence. The love that your soul always sensed reveals itself as a flame that was never extinguished. It is love that resisted time, battles, wounds. It is love written in the eternal scrolls, kept in divine secrets, prepared to blossom at the exact hour. Do not judge the silences of the past, for they were shield. Do not lament the distances you lived, for they were walls of protection. Do not grieve over the closed doors, for each closing was preservation. Now everything that seemed like loss becomes gain. What seemed like delay shows itself as preparation. What seemed like refusal reveals itself as care. And you will understand that you were never rejected, only safeguarded. Heaven celebrates this time as a turning point. It is not only reunion between souls, it is fulfillment of destiny. It is not only restoration of affection, it is fulfillment of promise. It is not only union between hearts, it is a living testimony of the faithfulness of the Most High. And your life will not only be marked by personal joy, but also by impact on those around you. Because when God restores what seemed lost, He does not do it in secret. He does it as a sign for many. Now you live the impossible. That which you thought unreachable begins to manifest. The love that seemed distant comes near with strength. The bond that seemed broken is remade with firmness. The hope that seemed extinguished is reignited with intensity. You will experience a level of fullness you never imagined, because it will not be sustained only by human emotions, but by the very breath of God. And in this revelation there is liberation. Liberation from the lies that said you were alone. Liberation from the fears that whispered you were unworthy. Liberation from the accusations that tried to convince you that you would never live true love. All this falls to the ground because the truth of heaven is greater than any deception of the earth. And the truth is this: you have been loved from the beginning. You were destined to live this love. You were prepared to carry this calling. Archangel Michael raises his flaming sword as a sign that the old cycles have ended. There is no longer room for confusion, no longer domain for deception, no longer power for shadow. What begins now is a season of light, a time of transparency, a path of clarity. Your soul no longer walks in uncertainty, but in the conviction that the love destined for you is real, is present, is eternal. And so, your story becomes a testimony of redemption. What seemed like the end became the beginning. What seemed like fragment became unity. What seemed like shadow became light. And you will understand that the Most High never erred in guiding you, never failed in keeping you, never delayed in revealing to you. He only waited for the perfect time, and that time is now. I, Michael, declare before you, the impossible has come, the love that was hidden has been revealed, the promise that was distant has been fulfilled. Walk in peace, because your soul will never be alone. Live in confidence, because your story was written by the Eternal. And celebrate, because the flash of truth has shone upon you and no one will be able to extinguish it.